It's likely that Sunny Hostin felt like she was having the worst day ever. Then Tyrus and Greg Gutfeld rushed in with their flamethrowers of sarcasm, transforming the entire situation into a full-fledged comic roast. The $450 million legal case involving her spouse was merely a prelude, and what followed was blatant, unadulterated humiliation. While Gutfeld spit out insults like a machine gun, Tyrus launched merciless, vicious attacks. Sunny might have won an Oscar for greatest poker face, because she remained silent throughout it all. What scandalous turn of events, though, caused the ruckus to go out of hand? Let's just say that the courtroom is more crazy than anyone could have imagined, with unbelievable drama, explosive legal battles, and hidden accounts. Just 31% of Americans have faith in our healthcare system. Our healthcare system is awful, and as you are aware, large corporations also hurt doctors. Medical professionals who wish to do good, like my husband, operate on people without insurance, and then have to sue health insurance corporations to get paid for the task he has spent his entire life training to do. It's also funny that she didn't know who she was, because she was so preoccupied with her identity. As the Supreme Court of daytime TV, Sunny Hostin has spent years on The View, balancing moral superiority with gavel. She offers firm judgments, rather than only expressing ideas. You'll be effectively banished from breakfast if you make one mistake. However, the self-described queen of legal purity was embroiled in a crisis that she caused herself this week. Her own husband is the star of a $450 million legal disaster. Her family's turmoil was broadcast live in the courtroom where she has been rendering decisions. And the irony was so strong that you could cut it with a gavel, or a man who will target white Americans and treat them like dogs who don't reflect our principles or ideals. Then you can get rid of those people, and the situation will quickly become evident. Given that you let racists into your backyard, do you really need to take a look in the mirror, tidy it up, and get them out? You gave black racists on TV the freedom to say anything they wanted about white people all day long. And I suppose they forgot that there were plenty of white people at home who were no longer watching your show. So just tidy up. Yes, Emily, get out the popcorn, because Tyrus and Greg Gutfeld were so full of sarcasm that they were prepared to roast Mount Olympus itself. On The View, Sunny spent years honing the art of indignation. Angry, furious, shocked, or doing whatever it takes to assert the moral superiority in a program that frequently resembled a verbal sparring match more than a conversation. Her husband, however, is reportedly embroiled in a financial disaster so big that it makes FTX seem like a bake sale. All of a sudden, due process and privacy are crucial. How practical. Consider that. All of a sudden, the queen of judicial verdicts is defending herself. The strong talk takes a vacation, and silence takes the place of sass. It would take a shovel to spread the hypocrisy here. She is confronted with Austin's racial preoccupation. We got today's video from Sunny Austin. This place seems to be in dire need of Sunny Austin. She appeared on the PBS program, Finding Your Roots, which focuses on the genealogy of famous people. To put things in perspective, Sunny has made a fortune by ranting about racial justice and white privilege, and is a strong advocate for reparations. As it happens, she is not as repressed as she says. In reality, she is descended from European slave masters. Sunny's virtuous rage and barely concealed disdain are evident when someone else is being attacked. Crickets, the loudest legal voice on the scene, suddenly realized the value of silence when her own husband was in the hot seat. Well done. Really. Next up are Tyrus and Greg Gutfeld, two sardonic men who could run a tiny country. And like wolves at a smorgasbord, they weren't going to pass up this fantastic chance to rip into the hypocrisy. Assign the lowest level of intelligence to Sunny Hostin, who believes that the solar eclipse was caused by climate change. Because everyone is aware that the eclipse was induced by the moon, which is governed by the gravitational pull of the view. There is no better time than now. With the accuracy of a sniper and the wit of a stand-up comedian, Greg Gutfeld, a virtuoso at exposing media hypocrisy, virtually threw a party on air. Tyrus, he could have as well brought marshmallows to cook over Sunny's flaming fire. Shall we discuss this $450 million 0-cent scandal? Sunny's spouse was caught up in a judicial nightmare so extensive that it makes Enron appear like a mistake. According to reports and heated social media discussions, financial mismanagement and potential fraud are among the accusations. Who's counting, though? Not Sunny, who all of a sudden says less about accountability than a malfunctioning Alexa. It seems as though someone disconnected her inner prosecutor, leaving just static in its place. It's a delightful irony. This is the same woman who, like a hawk identifying roadkill, made a profession out of analyzing other people's legal mess. A Republican is halfway through her speech when she is sued. However, it is suddenly inappropriate to guess when her own property is on fire. Irony isn't that. Performance art is what it is. Gutfeld quickly transformed his segment into a commentary masquerading as a roasting contest. They have little brains. However, who among them is the most stupid? Who is the densest, even if none of them are in Mensa? Maybe Sonny is the one who has perfected the art of making fools appear intelligent. The View could ask a mirror who is the most stupid of all of them, but glass will always break. Instead, Sonny would have won the gold medal if hypocrisy were a sport. Tyrus remained poised in the background, honing his linguistic machete, as Gutfeld broke down the double standard with the ecstatic vigor of a child opening toys. Did he swing it too? With the cool assurance of someone who has watched too much daytime television, Tyrus, who never holds back, delivered zingers, and at last retaliated. He cut through the smugness, the self-righteousness, and the eroding credibility that accompanied the scandal, in addition to exposing it. Tyrus will undoubtedly be present with a velvet pillow to retrieve the Queen of Condescension's crown in the event of such a huge controversy. Not to mention the View co-hosts, the so-called paragons of anger, who in record time changed from being fervent advocates of justice to a chorus of quiet. Normally loud enough to be heard from space, Joy Behar appeared to have seen a ghost. Normally equipped with morality lectures, Whoopi Goldberg could hardly muster a shrug. It seems that their anger meter goes dead the moment Sonny's name appears on the legal docket. Once, a conservative mispronounced a word, and these are the same people that caused a multi-segment meltdown. Yes. Not to mention the cost of butter. Sonny receives the game ball. There might have been a tighter election if it weren't for her, such as if she hadn't asked that question. Listen, they are entitled, resentful, and spiteful. Also, this ought to have been a fresh start for all those who propagated false information about Hitler in the past. These things are referred to as America rejected them, and they are now doubling down rather than returning and accusing us of lying. Allow her to continue because people will see through your lies, and if she does, we will continue to win the Senate, the House, and most likely the White House. Thus continue your current course of action. Game ball to Sonny. Game again. Everything becomes complex and nuanced after a $450 million case involving one of their own that makes no sense. How practical. In the meantime, social media exploded like a gasoline match. Timelines were overrun with memes. She was mercilessly mocked on Twitter. And ever the opportunist, Greg Gutfeld took advantage of the confusion to sharpen his argument on media elitism. He exposed the traditional double standard. When public personalities demand accountability, only when it's their turn to be the center of attention. It appears that the moral high ground is only comforting while you are standing on it, not when it is collapsing around you. Using his signature deadpan humor, Gutfeld pointed out that a program that was founded on honesty and openness suddenly had selective laryngitis. Then, in a tirade so dry it might as well have been desert air, Tyrus ridiculed the notion of Sonny providing legal counsel while purportedly assisting in the drafting of statements regarding her husband's misinterpreted financial situation. Sonny's moral compass may be the only thing more perplexing than the charges. It is spinning more quickly than a politician wearing a lie detector. Time is running out. You're correct. I will go slave owner if she says something foolish. I just watched that cat. It was the second time I had seen it. She was told in advance, wasn't she? In order to give her time to gather herself, they had to inform her beforehand. You wouldn't just assume that they would. No, I don't. I'm not sure. I think she might have performed better. All right, so this is the problem. She answered, well, I guess that's just what they did back then, which is one thing. And I would have genuinely refused to give her any. Yes. As a follow-up, she ought to have said something like, and I understand that that's a departure from the way I've talked about this before. To top it all off, The View pretended it had never occurred. Not a single sentence, not even a whisper. They can analyze Taylor Swift's former boyfriends for 20 minutes, but they can't seem to find the time to devote to a $450 million Shiro scent controversy that is tearing through Sonny's personal life. It might be elegant, or it might just be blatantly cowardly. You make the decision. In a final act of lyrical irony, Gutfeld asked Sonny if she would be interested in appearing on his show to talk about accountability. There is so much sarcasm that it could be bottled. Tyrus drew closer, his signature smirk speaking for him without a word. We informed you. But Sunny isn't the only one involved. This whole mess draws attention to the greater hypocrisy parade that is being carried by the mainstream media. These purported truth-tellers enjoy advocating for justice. However, it becomes theater of the absurd as their own skeletons come out. Until someone points out that their commandments are printed on paper thinner than their justifications, they quote laws as if they were taken from the Bible. Not even that. Additionally, you don't have to look for Trump supporters. Your racial baiters must be fired. The two races must be fired. You've had individuals. There was a McCain on you. You've previously had folks on there and expelled them. Thus, those who are prejudiced and want to maintain Whoopi, Sunny, and was it B. Midler? Could you tell me her name? B. broke ass. Bring people in, Midler, and fire them. You might be able to convince McCain to return. Sunny's supporters maintain that she shouldn't be held accountable for her husband's behavior. Indeed, that seems reasonable on paper. Remember, too, that this is the same woman who, like a presenter on CSI Hypocrisy, spent years analyzing the families of political competitors. When the roles are reversed, she is pleading for comprehension and context. There is more to that than a double standard. With denial on top, it's a whole double-decker of irony. And this fallout, it has only just begun. Sunny may have to do more than just sulk her way through commercial breaks, as more revelations are sure to come to light. Perhaps a personal leave of absence, a public declaration, or simply a new level of her trademark smug, resting face. Her credibility has already been severely damaged, regardless of her decision. In all honesty, The View was never exactly a temple of journalistic integrity, but this incident simply tore the curtain off the stage and exposed a group of presenters who were expecting self-awareness and frantically defending their own like a daytime soap opera mob. Ignore it. These are the kinds of people who could stumble over their own inconsistencies and yet place the blame elsewhere. They are as unlikely to own hypocrisy as Sunny submitting her husband's bail documents live on television. I didn't read that. A person with a legal degree who is that stupid is the real sign of the end of the world. Even worse, there's no justification for not understanding how an eclipse occurs if your name contains the word sun. However, it should come as no surprise that Joy is the one with scientific knowledge. She has spent years following the scientific diet. Sunny host pressed the mute button for uncomfortable controversies so hard that it could have shattered if The View had one. To be honest, it was essential to her reputation. Suddenly, the queen of theatrical legal tirades and courtroom monologues became the high priestess of silence. When discussing her husband's $450 million nonsensical legal turmoil, the same woman who could deliver a 10-minute lesson about a squirrel sneezing on Capitol Hill inexplicably lost her ability to talk. Is it a coincidence? Yes. Perhaps pigs have just launched a business. The arrogant cross-examinations and those pointless legalese statements were no more. The once ferocious justice warrior, Sunny, turned into a human screensaver. Incredulous onlookers observed as she fidgeted with her note cards, blinked slowly, and appeared to be creating her own plea agreement. Watching a lawyer play charades during a tax audit was similar to that. She pleaded, "Please don't ask me about the giant scandal tap dancing through this segment," with every twitch and forced sip from her mug. Her demeanor was akin to courtroom mime, tighter than a sealed vault, arms crossed, shoulders so tense they might shatter glass. At a law seminar, she's nodding like a bobblehead one moment. You'd think she was counting ceiling tiles for legal counsel, but the next moment she's dozing off so much. She is humiliating the offspring of this. Now that she is one of them, will she still do that? Dana, and it's humorous. She didn't know who she was since she is so preoccupied with identity. We can now see why she always insists that Whoopi get the coffee. Applause. Sunny sat still, as if she had just seen her husband's bail conditions emblazoned on her cards, in between Whoopi's eye rolls and Joy's out-of-control digressions. And Sunny abruptly developed an obsession with the floor, when the discussions turned even somewhat heated, and touched on subjects that veered close to fraud, corruption, or public humiliation. There was no deep thought in that blank stare. It was a whispered request to disappear. Unfortunately, that didn't work. Greg Gutfeld undoubtedly saw it, as did viewers and Twitter. He doesn't miss anything. Normally, Sunny is quick to interrupt others with her well-known statement. Actually, that's not how due process works. However, at this point, her only defense is her expression. Because guess what? This time, her own spouse is receiving due process in a real court. She used to have the loudest voice in the room, because of those frequent interruptions. but now they haunt her credibility like ghosts in a courtroom, while spectators hold their breath, expecting for her to lose it and scream indignantly at her own mirror. She sits, blinks, and takes a swig from that enormous mug as if it were filled with invisibility potion. It's not a graceful silence, it's desperate. A last-ditch effort to outdrink, outblink, and outlive. A scandal that is too enormous to conceal. Anna took a different course. However, I really enjoy the fact that Manny is younger and much more youthful. Only a bit. Isn't he about a year old? For example, a month, a year, or 10 years. Over a year has passed. It's not about me, anyway. No, I believe that his handiness is extremely beneficial, and I don't have to pick up any bags when we travel. It is he who is lifting them above his head. He discards the trash. He handles the heavy lifting. You can't cross-examine karma, Sonny. I'm sorry. Tyrus and Greg Gutfeld nevertheless provided America with the catharsis it didn't realize it needed. In a society where sanctimonious finger-pointing has become a full-time job and double standards are rampant, it's quite healing to watch this self-righteous person falter. Will Sonny recover? Most likely. The View is known for its ability to forgive its hosts, as long as their teachings are based on the accepted moral code. She may even turn this into a story of redemption. When justice hits too close to home is a TED lecture that could be of interest. But in the meantime, the internet continues to laugh, the memes continue to circulate, and Tyrus and Gutfeld continue to circle her hypocrisy like vultures with their jokes. Because the gavel will eventually return if you spend your professional life rendering moral judgments. Additionally, it struck Sonny with enough force to remove the smug from her highlight reel. Therefore, keep in mind that sometimes the loudest voices are the ones who choke on their own words the next time. The View delivers another moral lecture, particularly when Tyrus and Greg Gutfeld are standing by with the quips and the receipts.